as you're writing a commencement speech for the biggest night of your life. You start thinking of all the classes you've been through. From Mr. Reese's chemistry class, where he breaks into random jokes and songs while trying to go over review paper, to Mrs. Davis' class, where chairs do not exist, but rather red fitness balls that we all thought to be trampolines until we fell off. You could write about sports, from Little League, midget football, to varsity. You can mention the moment when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, open your windows to this fresh smell of calendar coming through. With all the possibilities that go through your head while writing a speech for the biggest night of your life, words find their way to a paper, only to be scribbled out, crumpled up, and thrown into the air. Maybe you can write about the early years, when Frankfurt, Mifflin, and Plainfield schools existed in Mount Rock City. The years before we became the senior class of 2013. How everyone was friends. There were no worries, and our biggest concern was recess. In my case, it was the girl who sat across the room. We didn't all know each other back then, because we attended different elementary schools. So how do you relate the times at Newville Elementary with Mr. Roberts, Mrs. Gabler, and Mrs. Wicker to everyone? You can't. So you crumple up the paper and toss it in the air and toward the trash can. The early years didn't work, so how about the years in between? That 6th grade year when we all met, when we were on the red, maroon, gold, blue, or white teams. When you ran down the hallways, Mrs. Tolbert made you stop, go back to where you started, and walk down the hallway. 5 seconds after you passed her, you ran to lunch because that was your daily workout, and they might run out of food. We met people in different classes, whether it was on the maroon team, where we gave My Little Pony lip gloss to Mr. Penner, or went to the library to ask out that one girl you had a crush on half the year, which was yet another great decision on my part. Maybe you think about gym class with Mr. Deutsch and his crazy yet funny antics when we were stretching. Then you think about the teachers. Mrs. Keller, for example, was one of the greatest teachers to step in front of the big spring classroom, one who we all knew and all loved. She was also the greatest person to wear the Bulldog mascot with pride, and the person who allowed me to follow in the tradition of wearing the Bulldog at sporting events and pep rallies. Middle school, however, doesn't work because we were immature. We were young and had few goals, but to get out as quickly as possible. And let's face it, we didn't pay attention whatsoever. So you crumple up the paper and toss it in the air towards the trash can, and it starts to descend. New idea. You can write about the community, Newville. Forget about writing about the school years at all. Talk about the town that has one stoplight, and if you don't see at least 2 tractors in town, it's got to be a Sunday. Town where we go through the streets, seeing a state police officer is more rare to see than a combine heading your way, and all you can think of is if you're going to have to get on the sidewalk in order to make it pass. Talk about the first day of fishing and hunting season, where if the school didn't close for the first day, there might be 10 people in classes. You could even mention the people of Newville and how camouflage clothing is our biggest trend in fashion. Fountain Festival is another good topic that you can talk about. From the big parade Friday and twang keeping up the town of Newville until 10 o'clock, to Saturday when that year's theme takes over the streets. You can mention the popular hangouts of Newville, from tractor playing, the drive-ins, possibly even Sailor's Market. Mention how during the long hot days of summer, somewhere in Newville every weekend there's a chicken barbecue, with an endless line of hungry Newvillians. Maybe you might mention cheese, and the fact that Newville was getting one. Talk about the stores in Newville, from Dollar General moving beside Sailors, to their competition, Family Dollar, going in at the old hardware store. Maybe you could say something about the frustration of drivers as they try to get past the mill during prom season, and gridlock at the singular red light of Newville early in the morning hours. Mention how during football season, the LBJ parade takes streaming fans, football players, and coaches through the streets, waking up the entire 1,200 persons that make up our population. However, if you only talk about Newville, you leave out the students, the biggest part of our community. You crumple up the paper, toss it in the air towards the trash can, it starts to descend and hits the edge of the trash can. The early years, middle school, and the community. Nothing that seemed like a good idea sounds good when written on paper. So you decide to give it one last shot. High school. That would work. From freshman to senior year, we fought against cancer, our rival Shippensburg, and occasionally one another. Whether we stood together for a teacher fighting breast cancer, children we didn't know at Minithon, or a complete stranger in need. We took back the little brown drug from Shippensburg our sophomore year. Raised over $40,000 this year for the kids at Minithon, and collected items for soldiers so that for a moment they could have a little piece of home. The way the student body rushed the field after winning the LBJ sophomore year, stood beside the softball team junior year, and cheered on Vinny Tudaro senior year as he won states in cross country. How about Dalton Heichman, as he convinced every single one of us junior year to TiVo at a pep rally? You can mention the teacher dance team, from Mrs. Naylor, Mr. Ginner, and Coach Barry showing what they were made of, to Mr. Gutschall kissing his goat. With all the events that happened in high school that gave us so many memories, it still wouldn't be enough, because the community that supported us the whole way is then left out. So you again crumple up the piece of paper, toss it in the air towards the trash can, where it descends, hits the edge of the trash can, and falls onto the floor. Why won't any ideas that you come up with work? Why did the paper not go into the can? What was missing? All of this, I can't explain. What I can say, however, is Big Spring and Newville, both of which when you search for on a map, cannot be found, cannot be summed up by one simple speech and a few events. Because while those few events may tell a story, the people, the students, and the teachers tell a much better one. Their story never ends, never completes, yet keeps going long after this night, which is just another chapter. The story of Newville in the class of 2013 is not over, it's just beginning. Because like the crumpled up piece of paper now laying on the floor, it's not done, not completed, and not ready to be forgotten. It's page 1 in a new chapter called Life. Congratulations, class of 2013.